now that the tweet is out, and you say that the Jets tweeting out that we've moved on officially allows Rodgers to have suitors call him and vice versa. What happens now?
Well, so
Rodgers?
He's got they got to deal with, I think it's around a $50 million cap hit that they'll wait to cut him until March 12th. Then you spread it over 2 years. You push most of the pain into 2026. But this is not a situation like Russell Wilson where he was getting paid cash last year by the Broncos. In other words, you can't just go, well, Aaron Rodgers will just sign somewhere for the minimum. He's not making any money from the Jets. And so the questions are going to be, who is actually interested in Aaron Rodgers, who for, missing the entire 2023 season. 2024, there's the most bad tape he's ever had and just missing throws. He had down the stretch, there were some games, some halves where you're like, oh, there he is. And there were large stretches where it just didn't look like he has it anymore. The medical literature would tell you he's going to be better a year later from the Achilles, but also he's 41 years old and coming back from an Achilles, which there's not a lot of data on that. So it's probably not a big money deal. Rodgers is going to have to decide what does he ultimately want to do. Like I've heard, the connections to he's got a house in Nashville and he could go there. The Titans have talent. It's not a full rebuild, but they're the worst team in the league last year. They had the worst record of anybody in the league. Is Aaron Rodgers going to plug in there for 1 year? What team is going to want all the other stuff? Even if there's not another documentary, but there's going to be, talking about any number of things in government and
no, I'm with you too.
That stuff.
I'm with you too. Yeah. But we can talk about it as much as we talk about it in the media. But everyone will tell you in the Jets locker room they friggin' love this guy.
Right.
So it's not like whatever he was saying on Pat was something that roosted in the locker room and created a problem internally.
But it's things that then you have to deal with organizationally, and your head coach has to answer questions. And hey, the quarterback went to Egypt instead of minicamp.
It opens things up.
All these things that are just
and you termed it unexcused. And I mean, we don't need to keep going back down there. But I know that there's other stuff that comes with Rodgers. Right. I'm just pointing out that sometimes the other stuff is made a bigger deal than it actually is in terms of the 53-man roster.
Rodgers also has been effectively running the same offense. There was the transition when they went from Mike McCarthy to Matt LaFleur.
Right.
And that was a process. That first year, if you remember,
I do.
He didn't throw the ball a ton. If you look at his numbers were way down. They won a lot of games, but they ran the crap out of the ball. So that was the one time. But then Hackett was an extension of LaFleur's offense, which was completely Aaron controlling things at the line of scrimmage and giving him options and everything, which is part of why Aaron gets frustrated with young players, because he wants it, hey, you got to be at my level. We're doing all these things on the fly and our rules and all that stuff. There's nowhere right now. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett's not an OC somewhere. Rodgers isn't going back to Green Bay. Where does he go and have either be adaptable to a new offense or have that team go, we're willing to run the Aaron Rodgers offense? It was the same thing when Brett Favre, went to the Jets years ago, and all of a sudden it was, hey, are we running that offense? Like, Brett barely knows his own offense. He's one of the greatest players of all time, but he wasn't like, it wasn't like this all-knower of X's and O's. And so they kind of they meshed the languages, and they had to figure it out, and he didn't play great. I mean, they weren't terrible in 08 with the Jets, and he had a biceps injury. But 09 he came back, and he ran. Brad Childress basically let him run his offense. So where does Rodgers go and be able to do that? Listen, there's a bunch of teams. There's a dozen or so teams that don't have a starting quarterback right now. You had a 4-time NFL MVP who isn't going to cost you a ton of money. I believe there's going to be an opportunity somewhere out there for Aaron Rodgers. But where that is right now, I can't sit here and say, I think he's going to go here. Because there's just too many moving parts.
Pittsburgh?
That would be a tough one.
Why? Why would it be a tough one? Why? I mean, Tomlin, and I think and Tomlin would be, would have a mutual respect.
No, and there's commonality to Arthur Smith's offense, which was a derivative of Matt LaFleur's offense in Tennessee.
Yes,
and so
sir.
there would be things that he would be able to pick up. But the Steelers are still, right now, from my understanding, and I know there's been various things reported and rumored, my understanding is they still want to get either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields back. Are there other opportunities out there where somebody else could become available and make them pivot off both of those guys? Yes. But I would anticipate in the next week or two, you're going to have a good idea of whether or not one of those guys are going to be back and who it is. And they're in different spots right now because Russ is probably going to be the more expensive of the two options just because of where he is in his career, the fact that he finished the season as a starter. He's telling everybody, I want to be back in Pittsburgh, but that's going to come with a number. With Justin Fields, who got benched last year when they had a winning record, you're going, I only want to come back if I'm clearly QB1 on this team. And either of these guys, frankly, for the Steelers, would be a bridge-type option, where if you're bringing those guys back, or if you're bringing Aaron Rodgers, you're doing that as, all right, we're going to get by, but also we quite possibly are going to draft a guy this year to be the long-term option for the team.
What about the tweet that caused Trevor Lawrence to trend this very morning?
Yeah, that was fake.
That was fake?
Fake?
What do you mean?
Steelers never called on Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence isn't getting traded for any number of reasons. I don't even know who you would call. They don't have a GM right now. You think the interim GM is going to be able to trade the franchise quarterback? No, there's nothing there. They didn't call. It's fake.
So the Steelers are kicking over what other rocks, do you think, here? Just looking for
everything is what I would say. I mean, the top free agent
Kirk
possibilities,
Cousins maybe getting cut in Atlanta.
All those different things. Cousins will be another interesting one because that's another. If they do it, I mean, the Falcons aren't putting out any statements early for Kirk Cousins. They are going to take this all the way until I believe it's a 5th-day roster bonus, which is March 16th. So basically, end of business March 15th. They're going to take it all the way up to there, and they're telling everybody we'll keep them. We'll
for
potentially
$40 million
pay,
to
potentially
back up.
even take on that extra $10 million in 2026 guaranteed money just to hold him. I don't believe Kirk wants to be there. I believe Kirk wants to play.
Makes sense.
And the idea of, listen, they can do it. You can make an intellectual argument that, hey, we're already paying him $30 million. Why are we going to pay him $30 million to go play for somebody else as opposed to being the backup here? My answer to that would be the same reason that it was at times problematic last year for Kirk Cousins, knowing Michael Penix was there. The moment Penix struggles, people are going to be going, play Kirk. You're paying him all this money. Put him in. I don't know that you want that over your young quarterback's shoulder going into next season. I think that's a potential issue. It's one of many things that they have to think through. But they've also, since they drafted Michael Penix, they've put themselves in a unique situation in their locker room.
What about Rodgers in Vegas?
Again, I think that these are all these things are possibilities. I think the way you have to look at it is all those teams are drafting a quarterback or in position to draft one also have to be thinking about, all right, do we have somebody? What's the proper way to set up the room? With Rodgers, it's not a long-term thing. I mean, he's a hired gun. But if his goal is, I'm going to, put one more stamp on my Hall of Fame resume and I want to go to the playoffs and win, where are you doing that? We're talking about a lot of teams that were really bad last year in terms of the teams that have vacancies.
Right.
Could he go to Cleveland? Could Kirk go to Cleveland? I think that's one spot where they quite possibly will add an economical veteran because they still have Deshaun on the roster. In addition to drafting a guy, I think that they'll be in that bucket. Pittsburgh, one way or another, is probably looking at a shorter term type of deal. The Raiders are looking at that as well. There's only one. I mean, Sam Darnold's the only quarterback pending a tag who's going to be free, who anybody's going to invest any type of money on. The other free agents are Fields, Wilson, and the other 2021 quarterbacks who all got cut. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones. Nobody's paying those guys on long-term deals. It's really just Sam Darnold, which is great news if you're Sam Darnold, because you're going to have that type of money out there. What Darnold's going to have to decide is, do I just want the money and take my chances going to someplace that might not be a good situation, or do I come back to Minnesota, show it again, do it again, and then get out into free agency?
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.